Good morning and God bless. Today we collect receipts. Let us work. Warning, this is a sealed execution file. Don't believe your eyes. You are not watching a stream. You're stepping into a moment where your word either means everything or it means nothing. My word is my bond. You might experience emotional unease from realizing how long you've been all talk. Flashbacks to past promises you never kept, and a fire to finish what's already been started. If these symptoms rise, don't backpedal. Don't re strategize. Don't be scared. Move anyway. Welcome to Raw for Epoch 2, day 117. The proof file. Don't just do it, show it, seal it, own it. Get that paper, collect those receipts. Here's our concept overview. Today, we decode the final filter between identity talk and identity truth. Here's what you'll learn: why self belief doesn't happen without self proof, how to measure proof beyond motivation or mood, why execution repetition is what rewires identity, how constant reflection becomes internal validation. Yeah, I love that. Internal validation. And the relationship between daily moves and divine record keeping. Make sure that this is popping off right. All right, I got the mic right. Let's go to the visual metaphor. It's Sunday. We're starting the week. That's how I get busy. I don't know about you. The unstamped passport. Imagine. Close your eyes and immerse yourself if you have to. Close your eyes if it makes you feel better. You've been handed a divine passport. Each page represents an identity you've spoken into existence. How many have you had? Entrepreneur, leader, lover, creator, maybe even a warrior. But when you open the pages, they are blank. You've traveled emotionally. You've envisioned the destination. You've closed your eyes and immersed yourself. But without the move, no stamp, no record, no proof. Now imagine every time you act in alignment, a stamp gets sealed. That book, that's not for others. That's for God, for root, for source. That is for you. That is for remembrance. Let's get into my personal perspective. The proof file. That's what we're calling this. What is your proof file? Now, if you've been with me, you know that this is true. I used to try journaling, red books, black books, all kinds of colors of books. I tried the typical self-help rituals. They worked until I realized I really didn't need a notepad. I needed a mirror. What I do is a moment-to-moment self-check, and it's brutal. And because I knew I need this, essentially I became my own counselor, my own coach, my own witness. I started practicing what I call contemplative reflection. You won't find that in any other book or podcast, I promise. This is a second by second scanning of my thoughts, feelings, and movements, not to criticize, but to catch. I need to pay attention to myself. So I'm trying to catch misalignment before it becomes part of my identity. And here's what I caught. Up until the moment you decide to move differently, you've only proven you're capable of exactly what you are already doing, and that is it. So when you stretch, when you try to believe in the next version of yourself, of course, it feels fake. Of course, you feel like a fraud. And it's because you haven't filed the proof yet. And so that's when most people fold. That's when they say, amongst many other things, I'm not ready. So I flipped it. Naturally, I didn't know anything else to do, at least it felt natural for me. I welcome it because I know the feeling of fraudulence is just an invitation to file new proof. You dig? I don't just move now, I move with self audit. Every day, I'm cycling through masks: father, builder, strategist, spirit filled man of God. And with each row, I ask, did I prove it? Did I execute beyond my last pattern, or did I just perform a remix of yesterday? Because without new proof, I know I'm just protecting old patterns, and that life is boring. I've lived that already to the fullest. I've replayed that version of me too many times. So I treat my life like an archive. I stack receipts, all kinds of receipts: spiritual, emotional, relational, tactical, not for the flex, not for nobody else, really. It's for the reminder. Because when the storm comes and it rains hard, when doubt shows up talking all slick, I don't debate it. I flip the file. That is how I anchor self trust. That is how I author forward belief. That is how I turn memory into momentum. Every step I take is a seal. Every move is either proof of evolution or proof of maintenance. And I'm done with with maintaining old versions of me. Let's check the chat on a Sunday, 408. Before we get into the Black Book and the system teaching, we're going to talk in a little bit of detail, but it's really essentially, I would describe it as a micromanagement of myself. I just I don't know any other way to express it. It's constant reflection. One of the things I'm learning that help really streamline, at least for me, the message, the possibility for the message. I'm still on this Kabbalist book, Sefer Yetzirat. It's intentionally spiritual. It references God a lot in the book. But I want to peel that back and just apply the logic and help drive towards what I really want to communicate here. But in Kabbalistic theory, one of the things they talk about as far as reflection and enhancing your ability to reflect. I said this many, many months ago. I realized this early on in my meditative process. I think visualization techniques are super important. And in a lot of this space, they're going to tell you to visualize money falling all over you and all the abundance and all the trophies. You want to do that, that's fine. But what I really want to drive is, if you haven't sat down to close your eyes, I'm being like, just let's just be unemotional about the possibility for this emotionally powerful and positive experience. You think it's easy, maybe, and maybe it is for you. Maybe this is just me, but again, I digress. Close your eyes and visualize even yourself. I don't think we look at ourselves as much as we think we do. It sounds narcissistic, I know. But there's trying to envision yourself. Close your eyes and use the power of visualization techniques to manifest things. Whether it's, again, the riches and the trophies and the abundance and the gold coins flowing over you and the dollars flying in your face, or just you in the poetic, blissful, balanced state of peace and contentment. It's harder than you think because we don't spend a lot of time really looking at ourselves. A lot of what we do is we reflect on what's already occurred. That's ruminating on the past. And then the past, again, if you really think about it, the past is a memory. The past doesn't contain words and the vibration of language, which language is the power of creation. You think about God spoke the world into existence, at least based on text. I know how that sounds, but I digress again from there, but let me get back. So if you are not strategically reflecting, come into presence to think about all the things that have occurred, then you're labeling your past however you're labeling your past, and you're contextualizing it through words and through creation that at minimum is already stale because it's expired because it already happened. So you can't really visualize yourself the way you think you're visualizing yourself, at least from the perspective of just come to presence in the moment and see yourself. Don't attach a past to it. Don't attach a future to it. Much more difficult and complex than you think, because the reality is, why are you talking about centered? You got to be in the center so you can pull your past forward into your future and see it for the everyday life that it is. So where I was going with this, when we talk about maintaining ourselves or not maintaining old versions, the Kabbalistic teaching talks about reflecting slowly backwards. So as I move, I start to immediately look right back into where I just came from. Very brief example. I went on a run yesterday and I decided to extend my run. I usually do 3 miles. I decided to go for a 5-mile run. Significant only in that I have to inspire myself to keep going. And I paid attention. At one point, my legs started to feel a little bit heavy. And it wasn't like I was tired. It's not like I was running that fast. I was doing my normal thing. I can run for over an hour. I can run for 2 hours. It's not a problem. Here's my point. Without me even coming to consciousness, I started to feel a sense of heaviness. I looked down and I was like at 2.98 miles. Why is that important? I wasn't tired. My body's just used to me stopping at 3 miles. I pretty much run 3 miles every day. So the maintenance in me, my body was alerting me, this is when we usually stop. So I had to tell myself, today we're not stopping here. We're going another 2 miles. And I immediately balanced myself by saying, I reflected back the entire run. Yo, this is where we started. And before I brought myself back to where I was at, I had gotten almost about another mile in. My point being, I'm constantly into the decisions in real time I make, inclusive of my thoughts, inclusive of my patterns, my habits, and what I'm speaking, what I'm experiencing. It's almost like real time maintenance to appreciate what I just did. And if I want to keep doing it, then I enhance it, or I look to optimize it, or I at least repeat it until it's very much like that 3 miles. I don't think, I just execute. And then once I execute there, I stack on it. I don't just stop because it's reached a level of optimization that's fluid and comfortable. No, once I realize I'm comfortable with something, I stack it intentionally. We talked about the pressure chamber yesterday. But the only way I know how to do this, to try and close the loop on the thought, and I hope I articulated this in the way that I was trying, it comes down to, I can't let a second go by without asking myself, yo, are you flowing how you want to flow? Are you being who you want to be? Are you behaving how you want to behave? Inclusive of everything. If I decide to take a nap, if I decide to not record after I record here, I go live every day. Do I feel like scripting the next recorded episode? How far ahead am I in certain spaces, in certain areas? Where am I at in my relationships? I don't know any other way to keep them not just maintained, but optimized and growing and stretching without constantly being reflective. It's constant, and it's like contemplative reflection. It's not just like, oh, hey, I did this. It's I did this. Did I get the outcome I was looking for? You can tie it into emotion. We're gonna talk in a moment the Black Book and the system teaching that proof isn't a feeling. But ultimately, what this amounts to, the more I go through contemplative reflecting, the more I can look back and prove to myself I am doing exactly what I said I would do. That's bigger than we might realize. Because anytime I want to make a move in a different direction, my system's going to look for proof that we can do it. And the more you give yourself proof, I reflect this way, I pray this way, I run this way, I lift this way, I read this way, I write this way, I speak this way in my relationships, I perform this way in my career, I perform this way for my entrepreneurial endeavors or my extension outside of whatever. That's what this ultimately amounts to, too, if it wasn't already clear. I've learned that you got to create proof for yourself. And the more proof you give yourself, the more possible it is for you to continue doing whatever it is you want to do. All right, I feel like I'm about to sneeze. Hold on. Oh, yeah. Contemplative reflection. I've either lost my mind or I'm onto something. And if it doesn't work for anybody else, that's cool. It works for me. All right. Here's the black book entry for today. Proof is not a feeling. It's a coded identity confirmation system. Here's what that means. Belief. You can believe all you want. And I believe in you that you should believe in you however you want to believe in you. But belief without proof is theory. Your brain doesn't register you as the person you imagine. It registers you as the person you consistently execute as. Execution is the only data the subconscious respects. You don't become confident by thinking, you become confident by completing. There's a creation pattern. You feel it, you think it, you speak it, you execute it. Memory is not emotional, it's pattern based. Your system tracks repetition. If you repeatedly stall, pause, or start over, it doesn't believe you. In fact, that is now the belief that you will pause and just start all over. Emotionally, the body responds to proof the way a court does to evidence. Without it, your argument doesn't hold weight. Imagine that. You're trying to prove to yourself. You're trying to prove to yourself. You don't just want to speak the belief. You got to behave the belief. Run a forensics test on your life. I think that courtroom thing is important. The evidence for who you believe you are, if you brought it with you to testify in front of God, spirit, creator, architect, whoever, the devil if you want it. How do you prove yourself? Is it not obvious that the proof is not in what you say? Why do I say all the time that I've at this point in my life, I pretty much ignore whatever anybody has. Most people are gonna bullshit you anyway. I don't got time for the bullshit. That's why I'm on do not disturb for my phone. Almost 99.9% of my day. Your argument doesn't hold weight without evidence. And that is why so many people feel like imposters, that old imposter syndrome. It's because they haven't shown up as the version they imagine. So their internal court keeps filing fraud. You want peace? Then build a record that removes all doubt. My word is my bond. I am a man of my word. And if you don't do this, that's cool. There's consequences. Here's your consequences of inaction when you don't have your receipts. If you don't seal your own profile, you'll keep mistaking potential for power. You'll keep praying for things your execution disqualifies. You'll start to resent your own dreams for requiring movement. You'll look confident but feel hollow. You'll study God but never obey him through action. And worst of all, you'll keep living like your potential is mythical when it was just unproven. Where's the proof for your life? Where's the proof? Here's how to take ownership. Start by naming your gap. Where do you keep talking but not producing? What are you pretending you've already stepped into? If you move and you create proof, you'll feel more comfortable talking about it. Because you'll speak from experience, not from theory. And if you keep speaking without moving, you'll continue to be uncomfortable moving. because you'll never have proved anything. Talking about it is producing a lot of nothing. If you can audit yourself, that's why I talk about reflection, moment to moment, contemplative thought, and reflection. How many more conversations, how many more people are you talking about or talking to about what you're gonna do and not doing it? And then you don't realize it, but you create an environment and a group of people who are just like that. A lot of talk, and you can't see past it because all you're doing is talking. Your time is consumed by the yapping. My son would say, "Holy yapper." He calls me Yappuccino. Stop yapping about it. That's that you're playing pretend. You're delusional in that way. You create these imaginations in your head. You want to talk about imagination and all those words that we stopped using because we're too old for that. What do you think you're doing when you come to contemplative thought? That's another thing. You don't realize that you're contemplating at all time. That your brain and your consciousness is processing at all times, and it's processing you motionless in stasis. Maybe you got to tell yourself out loud you're just lazy. If you want to talk about something, talk about how you haven't produced, and then close that. Get rid of that dead body. Name your proof gap. We're talking about how to create one stamped move today, just one. For example, send the email, make the call, record the content, book the appointment, write the offer, train the body. Let your system see the stamp. Then you want to track internal reflection, not just results, but every win matters, not because of outcome. Every sealed move says, I remember who I am. If I wasn't clear about this, we're going to get into our daily phone tap, audit, remix, re record. But that's another reason that I think so deeply and believe so strongly in contemplative reflection. Yo, thank you, God, I'm alive today. Every breath is a win for me. You start to baseline some levels of gratitude, which a lot of it is needed. And a lot of it becomes a lot more valid than we realize today because the abundance you're waiting for, the richness and all the money to slap you in the face with the trophies, that's going to be weightless. I think a lot of us are mature enough in our worlds, and the world has exposed enough of the hollow winds. You don't want to move around heavy with no weight. You don't want abundance in a way where you can't share it. You may not even really want what you think you want. But every time you move, every time you stack a win, you remember, yeah, it hurts. Yes, it's painful. Yes, it's easier to stop. But you do, I promise you, I've learned this. I can attest to this. Once you get past that, you have so much remembrance of all. That's why the grind is important. If you're going to grind, that's why repeating the same thing over and over is somewhat madness. But eventually, your triggers, your emotional experience, your conscious, it goes from like, yo, we really want to do this? It's going to hurt. To, yo, if you don't do this, it's going to hurt. That's why I expressed to you the habit of waking up at 3 o'clock, the habit of going live at 4. It's no difference than pouring a drink, rolling up the blunt. It's just that when you don't hit it, you withdraw from it. And you talk, this is the last time. But it's more inverted. It's more positively conducive to positive emotions. I have the same, I promise you, I have the same worry. Yo, if I don't go live today, not going to feel great. If I don't go for that run, I'm not going to feel great. If I don't lift today, I'm not going to feel great. If I don't make sure that I have the conversation I want to have with my wife, my daughter, my son, in a way that's conducive to positive reflection, that's another thing that'll make it painful. If you start to think about all that you're doing and all that you're missing, not just the arguments, the power of the friction. You argue with your significant other, your children. You you get called out by your boss, or you have conflict at work. When you get past feeling sorry for yourself, you start to really feel sorry about, yo, I missed an opportunity to create a better experience. I got 25 years, man. I'm committed to whatever I have left. 43. I'm gonna make it to 120. That's 77 years of life left. Why waste time? Why waste time not being who you said you would be? So in that way, every time I reflect on this, and every time I give myself proof, oh, I can actually have conflict, but resolve it properly and still have a conversation, hug and kiss my significant other, and know that we agree to disagree, but in a way where she's good and I'm good. There's no friction. And then also, yo, what I'm realizing, if you can reflect this way, even when things get sticky in your real tight relationships at work, the environment responds in a way where they're now in tune with, wait, this is not how we usually do this. We might have done this before, but it also remembers. That's another thing too. I talked about yesterday. Mentors. I stopped. I said about 3-4 years ago. Again, my wife being everything to me. I almost stopped really telling her about what I'm gonna do and what I intend to do. Let's say monetization for the channel is next up. I don't need to talk to her about monetization. I show it to her. I don't need to talk to her about, yo, did you watch this episode? She sees there's hundreds of episodes recorded. I don't tell her I'm waking up at 3 to record at 4, to pray and meditate. I told you this recently. The people around you are reflecting at you. They're a mirror. And she was like, yo, everything that I thought you could be because of God. I don't have any more money than I did before. I'm not any further in my career. All those things that we think are tangible. Yes, it helps. You want to have some success. I'm not diluting that. But it's not as important as you think it is relative to the experience of life. Moving how you want to move is a lot more dope than you realize, and a lot further away from who you are than we also probably realize. Reflect on it. Think about how you move. When's the last time you thought about how you move every day? And you really scrutinized every line, like, yo, what am I doing? 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 And then compare and contrast it. You want to compare and contrast? Compare and contrast to what it is you said you would do. And then the more you do what you said you were going to do, the more proof you have. You can get to a situation where you're like, yo, if I don't do it the way I said I would do it, I'm not gonna feel good about it. And you also stop talking about it. Or you go on a mic, and you create a podcast, and you tell everybody about it. All right, let's get into our daily phone tap in our ARR format, 4:30 on a Sunday. Y'all sleep it in. I'm checking the chat for no reason. Actually, I'm not. I'm checking. I don't want to do that. See that the power of language. You don't want to be dismissive to your subconscious in that way. Remember, it believes everything you tell it. I already know the audience is here. Whether it's on time with me or on time on its own time later with a different zip code and and region and what do you call that? East Coast, West Coast, whatever it is, time zone. Gotta believe it's here. And then you want proof? I'm on day 117. I got receipts all over the place. That's also the reality. Yo, when you look at somebody who's crossed that threshold, It starts with, yo, this dude's out of his mind. It starts with, it'll never work. It starts with, what are you doing? Massive critique, condemnation, and judgment. Yo, this dude's corny. This is cheesy. Then all of a sudden, the world adopts you. And everybody knew it was going to happen. And they look back and they go, oh, I get it now. Because why? That's persistence. That's consistency. You want to be, I talk about, you want to be delusional? Be delusional towards doing everything you said you're going to do. Then watch what happens. At minimum, the worst case, which to me is the best case, you start believing yourself a little bit more. And as I said in part of my overview, you already are believing everything about who you are. And in the way that we talk about stamina, are executing as you all day, every day in that way. And your consciousness, your spirit, we talked about spirit today. Your spirit only believes in what you're spirited to do today. All right, daily phone tap, audit, remix, record. I don't know. Watching a lot of football, soccer style with my son. Very Spanish driven. Maybe that's where that record. Audit one area where you believe you are called but haven't moved with proof. For example, you say you're called to lead, but you haven't created content, built the team, or mapped the direction in months. That's not leadership. That's latency. Yo, if you're let me talk about masculinity in men for a brief moment. If you're a man and you were called to lead and to protect and provide, get in front of your family today. Step in front. Be the person that can protect and provide and block all the fear that's around. You think it's not there, it's there. Remix. You want to remix turntable style. The identity you're stuck dreaming about. For example, stop saying I'm a visionary. Start proving it by executing a vision you wrote. The title without the work is just noise. You're an empty suit. Oh my God, I'm about my business. What exactly is your business? You definitely are about your business. The question is, what is your business? A lot of us are in the business of noise. A lot of us just like the way it sounds. A lot of us like the way it looks and we'll try to outfit on. We want the house and the structure for what it looks like. What's inside the house? I'm talking about the plumbing, the electricity. I'm talking about the wiring. That's what makes the house. A lot of y'all just want the dressings. A lot of you are already putting the curtains up and dressing the windows. You haven't closed the door. And you haven't shut everything down. And don't turn the lights on. Go dark. Go dark for a year. My bad. I'm supposed to tell you to go dark for like 30 days. You'll change your whole life. Here we are, 117 days in. I think it's 117 days in. When did I start this? Check the receipts. January 1st. How many of you stopped doing what you said you would do 117 days ago? And how many 117 days have you done that for? The title without the work is just noise. Stop being about, you want to make noise? You already know what I'm going to say. Then you want to re-record. Re-record your proof system. Create one tangible act today that makes your identity undeniable. That is the biggest thing. How do you identify with yourself? For example, don't say you're a finisher. Finish. Stamp the file. That's what this is. You believe yourself more than you do, inclusive of what you don't believe yourself to be able to do. And until you can believe differently about yourself, you never believe anything different about yourself. And the only way to believe differently is to move different. And you know you're making the right move when it's hard to believe in the moves you're making, And you know you're done with that move when you believe in it so deeply you don't got to think about it. It's time for another move. And then you stack, and then you stack, and then you stack, and then you stack, and the next thing you know, you look back and oh my God, you don't need more motivation. You need more stamps, not them welfare stamps like where I came from. I hated those days. Seal the proof file. Let your life match the title. Own the system or get erased by false proof. You either run the system or the system runs you. Change your mind, change your life. I am who I say I am. That's like a little, this is harder to do than you realize. I feel like I'm gonna bang my arm every time. But do you and stay rich.